Hello, sports fans, and welcome back to the Bikes or Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I'm your host. And I'd like to start today's episode by thanking our newest patrons. We've had quite a few sign up since the last episode, which is very appreciated. I'd like to give a shout out to those patrons now. They are Alyssa B. Shout out Alyssa B. She is the person who actually built the Bikes or Death website, the new website that you can find online right now. So shout out to Alyssa. Appreciate you coming on and becoming a patron. Jennifer A. and Michael W. Let's not forget Julian L. and Barry C. All right, everybody, that's all of our new patrons. I'd like to give a sincere shout out and appreciation to them because today's show is made possible by your generous donations. If you'd like to see these show continue to keep going and growing, that's the goal, to keep it growing, consider signing up as a patron. That's the number one way that you can support the podcast because it's really just saying thank you and keep it up. So if you do love this kind of content, if it gets you excited to get outdoors or maybe inspired to go ride your damn bike, maybe that is worth $1 a month to you, maybe a little bit more. You decide. Head over to bikesfordeath.com. You can find links to all the ways that you can support the podcast, including Patreon. All right, well, that's enough of that. Why don't we get straight to today's episode? I'm really excited about this one. We're going in a complete different direction than any of my previous episodes. And a lot of that is based on your request. Over the years, one of the things that I've been asked for a lot is more information about how to bikepacking basics, essentially. So that's what I'm going to do today. We're going to have our first ever Bikepacking Basics episode 1. We used a recent trip that myself and a couple of friends, well, I should say my partner Sarah and my friend Connor and I went on. It was my birthday bash weekend, February 5th, 41 years old, still going strong. But we use this trip as kind of the backdrop to answer your questions. So prior to the trip, I reached out on social media and got lots and lots of questions, and we got many of the same questions. This episode, we're going to go through, answer all of your questions. We're going to start with the least asked for and build up to number one, the most requested thing, the most requested piece of information on how to bike pack. And that was route building. And that actually worked out perfectly because not only were we going out to Big Bend for my birthday, but I like to maximize trips, for a lot of reasons. It's kind of my personality, but with the limited amount of trips that we're able to go on, I wanted to maximize this one. And part of that was doing something that I've wanted to do for a long time, which is to establish another route that's in the Big Bend region of Texas. You've heard me talk about it a lot. I think in general, Big Bend is a fairly well-known bikepacking destination. And from what I can tell, there's an increased interest in going out there. There's 2 routes that are currently established, one in the state park and by Logan Watts with bikepacking.com, and the other one by Jordan Vondy. He's based out of Austin, and that one's called the River Road Ramble. Both of those can be found on bikepacking.com, and they're both really great routes. What I wanted to contribute was something that may be a little bit more relaxed and or something that would be a little bit more appealing to maybe beginning bikepackers or, maybe going to the Big Bend region for the first time and wanting to dip your toe in and not bite off the whole 170-mile route that's available. So I'm not going to get too much into the route itself because the next episode, Connor and I are going to record an episode that's going to be kind of like a route guide. It's going to be a companion piece to the route that we're establishing and we'll be putting out soon. And we'll have a podcast to go along with it. So you can check out the maps, you'll be able to check out the pictures, and you'll be able to listen to the podcast where we kind of talk you through a lot of stuff, what to expect, what the conditions might be, what to look out for, how to prepare, and probably some history and tidbits along the way as well. So that's next time. But today we are going to use that trip as the backdrop to answer your questions. One of the problems with bikepacking is that there are so many different ways to do it that it's difficult to say this is the way. So we're going to answer your questions based on our experiences on this trip and how we prepared for this trip, etc. So I think that's it. I'm really excited about this one. I appreciate all your questions to make this episode possible. I think it's been a long time coming. I really liked it. I know we don't talk about gear very much and the how-tos and ins and outs. This has always been more of a story-based podcast, but the more I've seen an increase in new bikepackers and also the demand for this type of information, I'm happy to try to put out some good information for you fine folks out there. So give me some feedback on this one. Let me know what you think. And of course, if there's ever something you want to hear about, you can drop me a line at bikesfordeath.com. Of course, if you're a patron, you get access to my private Facebook group and a little bit more direct access to me. I'm going to be honest. If you're a patron, I answer your questions first. That's just the way it is. You pay to play, right? But I do try to answer everybody's questions. All of you are important. Not everybody can contribute, and times are tough out there. I know how it is, but I still got to pay the piper, and I still got to beg every single episode. All right, without further ado, I'd like to welcome back Miles Arbor to take it away with the Bikes or Death intro song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
All right, do you know what we're doing here today, Connor?
No idea.
Why did you sign up to do this then?
You asked me.
You just like willy-nilly just said yes. All right, well, actually, I don't know what we're doing today either because honestly, I've never done this before, but I'm going to try something new. I might as well explain it to you and to everybody else at the same time. Today, we are going to answer questions that I got via Instagram and Facebook in regards to the trip that you and I just got off of. And Sarah, shout out Sarah. Hey, she was there. I think Sarah's going to chime in later. We got some questions that she's going to help answer. But anyway, so the idea is some bikepacking basics. What are questions that people have? And I've got all the questions here. We got like over 40 questions. I narrowed them down to like 18. We're going to kind of start with the easy, quick ones and then work into some of the ones like, for example, route building was the number one requested thing that people wanted to know about. That's the plan. So we're just going to go through and answer those. But before we do that, I think we should introduce you a little bit if that's okay.
Yeah,
or just talk
sure.
a little bit because like normally in every other episode I've ever done, I'm interviewing somebody. So this is like the first time that someone's come on and we're like talking and nobody knows who you are. So Connor, how old are you? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
I'm 23, live here in College Station, have for most of my life, actually all my life. Work at the bike shop here in town, and that's how I kind of ran into Patrick. So
You got to plug the bike shop name.
Oh, Aguilan Cycling.
That's right.
In College Station.
So my local bike shop, that's how I met Connor. And we kind of became adventure friends. We've done some bike packing and some river trips, namely. I guess we've done some hiking now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit. So how did you get into bike packing?
Well.
And when?
Yeah, it was kind of, I got into backpacking first.
Yeah.
Going out to New Mexico and doing that. And it was kind of a natural progression. Working at the bike shop, being more in the cycling world, it just kind of blended those two together. You still use the skills from, backpacking, but you could go a little further. And you got to ride your bike. So, it worked out really nice.
So when was your first bikepacking trip?
I think the first, serious one besides just, riding around was the Katy Trail.
That was like 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
3 years ago, I think.
Did you do the whole thing?
Yeah.
How
Pretty
was
much.
it?
Well, we started in Sedalia and went all the way to.
Yeah.
There was 30 miles we cut out just so we didn't have to go out and back on the first day. But
How many miles is the whole thing?
couldn't tell you. I don't know.
Well, another thing that we have in common, and you kind of alluded to it, is with the backpacking and the hiking and stuff like that, is we're both Eagle Scouts, and we've both led young scouts on expeditions in the backcountry. So I was wondering if you just wanted to share, what kind of experiences you had, because I know you have pretty extensive experience with the Boy Scouts.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was in the Scouts, I went out to Philmont, did a 12-day trek, and then went back the next summer and did a 3-week trek, and then ended up going out there and working for 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those places, you kind of fall in love with it. And it's one of those jobs you can't believe someone pays you to do. So I worked, taking crews out for 3.5 days, kind of teaching them the ropes and then letting them go and finish the rest of their 12-day trek. So got a lot of good, backcountry experience, lots of hard skills, as well as kind of leadership, group dynamics, stuff like that. And yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, man. I mean, you gravitate towards it pretty naturally. And I'm wondering if you know what it is that draws you to the outdoors. Cause I mean, you're 23, like you said, you're still young, but I mean, you've got a lot of experience, and I can vouch for you. Like, you go in the backcountry and you know what you're doing. You're a knowledgeable outdoorsman,
Yeah.
So what is it about it that really draws you in?
To be kind of abstract, I think it's the honesty of it. Especially with backpacking. Backpacking is a little different because you have downhills, but with backpacking, you've got to take every single step. You got to feed yourself each day, and you got to find yourself to camp at night. No one's going to do it for you, but you can do it, for yourself. Get to see some amazing places, and also, just time to slow down too. It's hard to slow down, living in I don't want to be pedantic, but like a normal society, you don't have a time where you can just, you can wake up with the sun and go to sleep with the sun. And you just have a very set goal each day. It's just, being alive and enjoying it,
Yeah. Wise words for a young man. That's why we're friends. It's
Part of it, yeah.
Well, yeah. The other part is how to fix bikes.
Right. Yeah. It helps. Huh?
It is helpful. I mean, we're going to be talking about, people have questions, and you're a knowledgeable guy. We both have some pretty decent experience in the backcountry. I have little mechanical experience or inclination. Connor should also mention that you have a degree in engineering from A&M, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you have
they gave me one. Yeah.
What they gave? Well, he probably earned it, but a good engineering mind. So I think that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience, because you need to have some credibility. This is your internet resume right now that we're creating on the fly. So the way that I want to approach these questions is using the trip that we just got back from, yesterday, right? Yeah.
2 days ago.
2 days ago?
It was late. Yeah, late 2 days. But
oh, yes. Yeah.
Feels like yesterday.
2 days ago. So we just got back from a trip to Big Bend National Park. And it was actually it was my birthday trip is what I wanted to do for my birthday. So it was Sarah and Connor and I. It was just us, staying COVID safe and all that stuff, and just trying to keep it nice and intimate. And it's what I wanted for my birthday, honestly, was just to have a nice, relaxing time. And if you invite the wrong person, man, sometimes it can get awkward. It's a 10-hour drive out to Big Bend. You don't want to invite the wrong person, and it ruins the whole trip. So I think we're still friends. We're still here.
Yeah, it works out.
It went pretty well. But for the purpose of answering all these questions, I want to use that trip as, the backdrop. So when we're talking about, water or, our sleeping system or whatever it is, because there's so many different scenarios out there to be able to talk about and answer all these questions in detail and be like, well, you could do this or this or this or this. I think focusing on just what we did on this trip is kind of the best way to approach it. All right. Are you ready to kind of get into these?
Yeah, let's dive in.
All right. So I think what we'll do is we'll take turns. You go first, or you go once, I go once, something like that. So, how to make coffee while bike packing is the first one. Connor doesn't partake.
Right. Yeah.
You did say that you like to make coffee.
Right.
So, do you ever make it in the backcountry?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. I learned how to use a French press, which is really interesting because, it's just a nice little process you can follow, and it doesn't make sense while you're doing it, but you make coffee and people enjoy coffee. So it works out.
Yeah. Well, like I have almost exclusively outside of this trip that we just took, have always used I'm trying to remember what they are. They're the Starbucks instant coffees. I don't know exactly what they're, but they're very popular. They're everywhere. They're in every grocery store I've ever been in. And it's the best tasting one. And so it's the easy way. But as Connor can attest, I take as very little. Connor and I, we pack differently. I take the minimum stuff to maybe hopefully survive.
Yeah.
And Connor takes all the things, including the repair manual and all the parts to fix the stoves and all that stuff. So this is good. We'll have a couple different
Yeah, for sure.
perspectives. So sleep systems, necessities. What was your sleep system for this trip?
Does that include tent and everything, or?
Yeah, your whole system. Yeah.
Yeah, so I used the same backpacking tent I've had since 2012. My first trip I did with my dad, we bought it. It's a REI, just like 2-man tent. It's a little big just for one person, but it's nice to have the room because I toss and turn a lot. And so, how I used it for Big Bend is since there's very little bugs, especially in the winter, I just had the ground cloth and then the rain fly on top. So saved a little weight, and it worked out really well because we had clear nights every night. So it'll just pop the flaps open and look at the stars. And when you woke up in the middle of the night, you had something nice to look at, and that was nice. I've always been a ground sleeper. You kind of have to at Big Bend anyway. Since I sleep on my stomach, hammocks don't work out too great. So I use a good inflatable pad, and recently switched to, it's like a combination quilt, combination sleeping bag, a little more roomy, and I've got the long version, and that changed my life, having a long sleeping bag and pad.
Why?
So I'm a relatively long person, so it's nice and roomy.
Well, do you like get in it? Like, can you like huddle up in it and get all like warm and stuff?
Curl up.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's got the quilt kind of top, so I can curl up, and it's nice, and is plenty warm for Big Bend because desert, pretty big temperature swings.
Yeah, we should say for, I guess, perspective of this conversation, what the temperatures were. We got pretty lucky overall. It was the desert. It was hot during the day, but it gets a lot hotter. It's probably 80s during the day. We don't really know because we didn't have access to technology that would function. But by my skin thermometer, I think it read about 85 during the day. And we know one night it froze because I left some water in a cup and it completely froze through. So we know that it got into freezing temps at night. So all right, is that your system?
Yeah, pretty much. And
you use a pillow?
I don't know. I use my like puffy jacket, just ball up and throw in there. And
so what I like to do for a pillow, now I did bring a pillow on this trip. I mean, they're really small, but oftentimes what I'll do is I'll just take my stuff sack.
Yeah.
And if I have extra whatever, I mean, even if it's trash, I don't just throw some stuff in there, puff it up a little bit, throw some leaves in there, whatever you do, and make a pillow. So that's kind of a lightweight hack that I like to
for sure.
Do oftentimes. All right, well, for me, this originally, one more note. Originally, it was going to be a bikepacking trip. Sarah unfortunately came down with bronchitis, and so it turned into. Well, it was always going to be a route exploration. I always wanted to find out if I've been looking for a route in Big Bend for a little while, and this was always going to be that, but we wound up having a vehicle there too, and so. I'm going to answer this question in what I would normally sleep in and what the sleep system that I brought to actually use and I would typically use at Big Bend. So I have an outdoor research Helium Bivvy, which I really like. Sarah just got one too, and it's interesting for all you weight weenies out there. I got mine like 2 years ago, And Sarah just got one like last week for this trip, and hers is 50 grams lighter, and it's the same model. So, now I want a new one. But anyway, it's a good Bivvy. I just got a new sleeping bag for this trip because I didn't have one for cold weather because I don't usually go out in cold weather. And I got the Mountain Hardwear Bishop 30 degree, and so I'm 6'1", 6'2", somewhere around there, and I got the medium, which is recommended up to 6 feet. But I've got to save the weight and space and everything. And but it worked fine. It was very tight, but luckily I'm not claustrophobic. So if you're claustrophobic, get the right size for sure. But it was fine for me. Okay, so that was my sleeping bag. My pad is the Thermarest Neo Air Light or something. It's the lightest one they make. It's like the yellow orangish one. I've had it for 4 years now. It looks and feels like it's gonna like evaporate into thin air. Yeah. But it's held up over 4 years of sleeping on it. So, I can recommend it. And then I did bring like a little cheap Amazon blow up pillow for this one. So
does your pad do like the bag of chips crinkle?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It sounds like you're. I was gonna say a Pringles, but like, we have Ruffles. We had Ruffles. Yeah. Like being in a Ruffles bag, just turning around all night. Oh, all right. Do you have a favorite piece of gear? That's a tough one. I thought of some of the answers prior, but I didn't think of that one. I mean, other than our bikes, obviously.
Yeah. I think. I don't know, that sleeping bag I got, if we want to name drop, it's the Sierra Designs Backcountry bed. And changing to that over a Mummy was a pretty big change for me.
You can name drop.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay. I won't edit it out or anything.
No, I saw you did. I don't know. I guess people take recommendations, but yeah, I like that one. The combination of the quilt was a game changer. I think if you have something comfortable to go into at the end of the day, even if it's a rough day, you're going to be all right. It's important.
Do you have a piece of gear that's more like sentimental, like your stove or something, like your stove requires
I do like the stove.
Yeah, your stove, I still don't understand, but you love it.
Yeah, I do, yeah. Yeah, so it's the MSR Whisper Light, but it's a little better for bigger groups, with 2 or 3 people, it's kind of overkill.
But yet you always take it.
I know. Well, the first time I used it, I thought it was the coolest thing because what it does is it takes the liquid fuel, runs it through a coil, and the coil heats it up and turns it into gas. Yeah. So you get more mileage out of your liquid fuel. And I thought that was the coolest thing because it's kind of like a priming procedure you do. And whenever I learned how to do it, it was, like a week-long trip. I did it every night of the week. Everyone was fine with me cooking because I like to use the stove in it. So I kind of nerded out a little bit on it. Now I bring it.
That's pretty funny. Most people are like pyros, and I guess they like to build the fire, and you're just like, I like to use my stove.
I like that too.
Yeah, yeah, fires are fun. Yeah. That's the one bummer about the national park is no ground fires, but it really didn't detract. I mean, and really you wouldn't be able to enjoy the night sky as much if you had a fire. Yeah. So it all works out. All right. So favorite piece of gear. Oh, I didn't answer that one. Well, obviously it was the new Bikes for Death titanium whiskey flask that this was my first time to use that on a trip. It worked famously. The whiskey tasted amazing. I think I got drunker than I ever have. And no hangover in the morning. And I think that's all attributed to that flask. Those are available now at bikesfordeath.com. I like all my, I don't know if I have, like, I'm trying to think. I got the new sleeping bag right before this trip, and I was really excited about it. And I'm really happy about it, I should say. I got a new headlamp, a black diamond like yours, and I was mostly happy with it, but I learned that mine doesn't have the red light. Yeah. And so now I have to get another one that's the exact same, because you have basically the same thing, but it has a red light on it. So that was one I was like a little disappointed in. I think it's worth mentioning that if you saw my Instagram stories earlier, and I was like touting this micro stove that I got on Amazon. It was like a GSB for $9. I tested it out at home, worked great, took it to Big Bend, and the seal completely failed, and I was getting gas all over the place.
The first time you used it?
the first time.
night,
Yeah. It worked fine in my house, but you took it outside. I did what I tell everyone to do. I tell everyone, test your gear before you. So I did it. I tested it. I boiled water. I did the whole thing. Take it out there. No workies. So maybe test it twice.
Right.
So I'm thinking of a couple things that didn't work. I guess my favorite piece of gear that I've been carrying lately is my camera. Can I count that?
Yeah. That counts.
I've been working on my finding a way to carry a camera when you're bouncing all around and you want to be safe and comfortable and all that has been a pain in the ass. Finally found a hip pack that works and I'm carrying my camera gear and I love taking pictures and so I that's been my favorite piece of gear.
Yeah. And one other one I did think about is the bucket hat.
Oh, yeah. Especially there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially, yeah. Because I started off, I got one from our great grandpa and I always used it backpacking. I lost that one. And so I've kind of moved on, but it works great. And I use it as a pot holder.
Nalgene's are good. They
Especially
have
out there.
measuring on them. And then you can also boil water, put it in there and put it in your sleeping bag if it gets cold at night. That's a useful piece of gear. Your stove was clutch.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Only one person wanted to know what our favorite.
Spent 15 minutes on it. But
Hey, we don't talk very much about gear on this podcast. This is the first time, so maybe we'll do it more often. All right, favorite piece of gear. All right, so bike fit tips for high mileage days. Comfort is king. I have never had a bike fit in my life. I kind of come from the school of, you just grow up and you figure it out. And you know what I'm saying? Like when you grow up riding bikes, you just kind of get a knack for that feels good, that feels right. And you learn some stuff around the way and you adjust. And even on trips, on the trip that you and I just took, like I'm riding, I'm like, nope, need to make an adjustment. I'm making a little fine tune because something doesn't feel right. But I've never been bike fit before. Although I do agree, comfort is king, right? Like the secret to being happy and having like a successful, if we're talking about a bike trip or a bike tour, bike packing, not like a race, but being comfortable is like equal to like a long day in the saddle and being able to go and go. But you work in a bike shop. So I don't know. I know y'all don't do like a ton of fitting, I don't think, but do you have any thoughts on fitting for comfort on a long day for long days? Hit us.
I know on my first bike packing trip, I had my stem set pretty low. And I remember towards the end, I had that thing all the way up on the steer tube as far as it would go, and I was out of spacers.
Yeah.
So now, definitely setting up my bike, setting up other people's bikes, I definitely have a little bit of commitment issues on cutting the fork. So I always leave a little bit because, when you get out there and that lower back's really killing you, that extra spacer helps.
Yeah, that's smart.
So leaving you some space there, I think, is nice.
So the idea being getting a little more upright, taking weight off of what your hand, where are you trying to relieve pressure?
Yeah, a little bit off the hands. My lower back's always been bad, so being a little more upright has helped. And I know some people are more comfortable when they're slammed too. So I think just time in the saddle and
that's
the biggest thing.
That is the thing, because we all have things like you said. Your lower back hurts. My hands hurt. Yeah. My buddy Ryan, his knees hurt. So. You actually work in a bike shop. My thought would be you got to tinker around and don't be afraid to change things, go up, go down, move your seat forward, move it back, tilt it up, do all the things. Or, probably just go into a bike fitter and pay them some money and they'll do it all for you.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're starting off too. Like, someone that's ridden a lot,
point.
Just, if someone's really off, you can look at them and tell right away.
That's a
some
good
small
point.
Adjustments to get them a lot closer.
I kind of coming from the perspective of like I was saying, growing up and just kind of having a pretty good idea. But yeah, if you're like getting into it, I'm not a bike fitter, but man, you see some stuff on Instagram or something like, whoa.
Yeah.
Or out of Big Bend like we saw this weekend. You're just like, is that rideable?
Right. Yeah.
You're going to have arthritis by the time you're 23, bud. Let me tell you. So yeah, that's a good one. One other note on bike fit. I don't have anything against it. In fact, I have a bike that that it's being built right now, and I'm gonna get that one fit to me. So I'm curious. Like, to me, there's a question mark. Is all my fiddling around being detrimental to my what if I went and got a bike fit and I became faster and more comfortable? Like, that easily, and I've been stubborn this whole time. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm not ruling it out. Like it's, I would recommend you go and pay someone. I'm just cheap and poor.
Exactly.
Right.
Same boat. Yeah.
So yeah. All right. What else? All right. Can't go without. I think we did that. Can't go without items. Headlamp.
A paper map. I'm kind of old fashioned there, but.
Oh, you're taking this in a different direction. Yeah. I was thinking like your favorite piece of gear. I like when they say can't go without, but you're thinking more like what is a must have like necessity item. Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds. I mean, well, let's talk about that. I mean, there's repair. I think you need to have like, a spare tube or two, some slime, needle and a thread. I like zip ties.
Yes. Saved my life
an extra quick link. Learned that one the hard way. An extra quick link. Multi-tool, obviously. We would have liked to have some grease on this trip. Chain lube. Chain lube. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot it. Should have known with how dry and dusty everything is. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing, depending on where you're going, if it's going to be super wet or super dry or whatever, you might need more tubes, whatnot.
Yeah. I can vouch for the zip ties. That trip we did this summer up to Colorado, the Vapor Trail route, the first couple days, it had some anything cages on a suspension fork with some plastic mounts on there.
Yeah.
And every turn it felt like we had hit it on a rock and break those off. So we stopped at this little store and asked this guy, and he's like, do you have any zip ties? And he's like, oh, let me see. And he goes in the back and pulls out his toolbox and pulls them out. And I was like, I'll give you whatever you want for these zip ties. He's like, no, just take them. And that pretty much saved the trip because we were able to keep everything on. Yeah.
Yeah. There's infinite, ways to use a zip tie. When I bought my bike, my Chumba from Vince, he had Gorilla tape wrapped around the very top. You've probably seen it because you work on my bike at the very top. I thought that was a nice little hack, just a nice way I didn't finish that sentence. He had it wrapped around the top of the seat tube that I just smashed into a pancake.
Yeah.
Oh, no comment. Moving on. Any other can't go without items for me? I don't need too many luxury items. I do like to have a flask of whiskey. That's a kind of can't go without. I really prefer hammock. Like if I was going to say, if we were talking about favorite piece of gear, actually, hammock would be up there. Like everybody knows I'm a hammock lover. It's like being cradled in your mother's womb. It's just like going back home.
Yeah.
But some people hate it. Some people in this room, actually, I think I'm outnumbered here, so I'm not in good company, unfortunately. But that's one of my favorite pieces of gear. And anytime I can, I will always choose hammock over ground sleeping. But like you said, where we went in Big Bend, not only is it unlikely, but it is against the rules to hammock camp there because trees are so few and far between, and they don't need the strain of your freaking hammock on them. They got a hard enough life.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do our thoughts on e-bikes. This should be fun. I don't know whose turn it is to go first. You do. We talked about this a little bit on the trip, actually.
Yeah. I'll let you because you had your little...
Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my thought on e-bikes. I think that they have a place. I think that it's cool that Rue used it recently. Do you know who Rue is? Rue is Lael's girlfriend, and she's she's a photographer and videographer and stuff. And so on these projects that she's working on with Lael, she'll ride an e-bike and she's able to like get ahead and like get the shot and and so she's still riding, she's still doing the thing, but she's also carrying camera gear and having to work, so it facilitates that. I think that's kind of cool. For me, my progression in life, I've always thought of it like this: I'm gonna ride my bike until I need a little help. Hopefully it's much later, like in the 80s or something, maybe 70s. We'll see. And then I'll get an e-bike. And then after an e-bike, when I'm like 90 or 100, then I'm going to get a dual sport motorcycle. So I don't have a problem with e-bikes. I mean, I don't want them to become the prevailing mode of transportation, I think, in cycling. And actually, let's ask you. I mean, you sell bikes. What is the demand for e-bikes like, and what percentage of your sales? I mean, anecdotally, do you think that?
Yeah, it's kind of different where we're at in College Station. Most of the e-bikes we see are commuter e-bikes.
Right.
And
Well,
so,
sure. I'm talking about those too. I mean, just kind of
Yeah.
like what is the growing demand and popularity? Because like it starts there, and how much are we going to see it trickle into other stuff?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely grown more than it has, but I haven't really seen it explode.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
That's what
yeah.
I feel like too. Like it's out there. There's some people that want it, but most cyclists, we want to ride our bike, you know, right?
And it's a pretty big price barrier too, which I think gets most people.
How much actually? I've never looked at buying one.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it depends where you're getting it from. If you're looking for like one of the bigger bike brands, you know, you're probably around the 2,000 range and up. And I mean, if you're looking for something to do long trips on, you know, that's cutting out of the rest of the components. You know, if you have a budget for a bike, you're shuttling some money to the motor on it. So, yeah, you're going to get a little lower quality bike overall. So
What are your thoughts on them?
they have a place, absolutely. I don't know.
Old people with disabilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Or I mean, yeah.
Or I mean,
People just want to go further, you know, and
further?
you know, don't have the time to train, you know.
Dads.
Yeah.
Cass Gilbert's a great example. You know, he has his extra cycle, I think, with his son. And I, as a father, I'm totally into that. You know, if I can, I don't have one, but I mean, the thought of like a big surly dummy with a motor, a little zoom on it, and take Sloan and Lila out in the backcountry. Yeah, that's a great application for something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. No e-bike hate here. There's a time and a place, so be smart about it.
Yeah.
E-bike responsibly. Bags and setups for small bikes. So we have a small karate monkey. Yeah. Now, that's a tough one. And I've talked about, I wish I knew like all the podcast numbers, but I've talked about, actually, I do remember one. I talked to Greg Hardy, one of the rock guys, the second Greg Hardy interview I did at the Bikepacking Summit. I believe we addressed that in that episode. So that one might be worth listening to. We might have addressed it in the episode 1 of the podcast. I don't remember, but I don't think so. But small people, height challenged, fork mounts, right? Mm-hmm. I've seen, depending on the bike and the way it's set up, if you have enough clearance between your down tube and your front tire, you can carry a decent amount of stuff down there. The best saddlebag that I've found for low clearance between the rear tire and the saddle is the Porcelain Rocket Mr. Fusion Mini. Now, Porcelain Rocket, as we both know, just sold to Rockgeist. So I don't know if Rockgeist is going to continue that product or not. But if anybody wants to know, I would shoot Greg an email. You can find him either at Rockgeist on Instagram or rockgeist.com. But yeah, so those are some of my tips. Oh, and then the other one is just carrying weight on the back, obviously. Is just kind of like the bummer.
The last resort.
At the last resort, nobody wants to do it. But I mean, you know, I've carried weight on my back plenty of times. It's not the end of the world. I don't know. What do you got, Connor?
Yeah, no, I think there's some good recommendations for sure. Depending on where you're riding, you can look. Yeah, I guess heel clearance can be an issue, but you can look at rear rack going retro, you know, panniers. There's also Aero. It's like AEROE. They make some like clamp-on racks too that have dry bags that are a little more bikepacking friendly than traditional rack and panniers, but it'd be an option too.
Yeah, those are good options. And I forgot to mention front roll. If you can, a flat bar is better because you can get a longer and a bigger front roll in there. Or there's gravel bars or, drop bars that are a lot wider now that can accommodate more. But then if you're short, the wider bars probably aren't as good for you, right? Mm-hmm. That would be the thought there. Yeah. So, it's going to take a little tinkering, but there's options. I think there's a few good options. Choosing bags and gear distribution on your bike. Whew. That's a hard one. That's like a whole podcast in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it probably could be.
I think I'm gonna, because what I want to do, I'm gonna do one on packing. Like what goes where and that kind of stuff. I'm gonna table that one because that's like a whole thing for bike packing. Clip-ins or flats, and why? All right, your turn. Go.
I've always ridden clipless just because that's what I'm comfortable with. It's nice knowing your feet are attached to the bike and they're not going to come off. So that's always what I've done. I definitely see the side of flats though. You can bring one pair of shoes.
Yep.
More security. If you need to hike a bike, it's a lot easier.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm stuck in the clipless camp.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. I'm 100% clipless. I've tried flats a couple times, but honestly, the security of being clipped in and like, I want to be like locked into the bike. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a better feeling for me when I ride. But there's oftentimes, in this trip we went on to Big Bend was one of them, where we had some hikes planned, and so you and I both had to bring extra shoes.
Right.
Sarah rides flats. She loves flats, and she only brought one pair of shoes. She brought the wrong one pair of shoes, but normally it works, and it's a great way to do it. It just didn't work for her this time.
Yeah, it's definitely a comfort thing too. I wouldn't recommend it on your first trip. Get some.
What do you
miles
mean?
On it, as far as getting clipped out and stuff in time, it
Oh,
takes some time to
yeah.
get that muscle memory down and everything.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about flats.
Oh no. Clipless,
Yeah, definitely on a loaded bike too. Yeah, on a loaded bike, you want to unclip a little sooner.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I've had some awkward moments where I'm super tired and there's all this weight and I kind of like lean wrong and I'm like, I got the wrong foot unclipped and I don't know.
Yeah. Once that heavy bike starts going, it's hard to get it back up.
Yeah. So unclip a little early, get ready. All right. Do people usually secure their bikes for overnighters so they don't get stolen? I never have. I'll tell you what, the only thing that I've never done this, but what I've thought that I would do if I ever needed to is I would just like tie my bike to me, in some way. Like I'd tie it to the tent, I'd sleep on it. I mean, I don't know. Like I would be attached to it in some way, so nobody's just gonna like run off with my bike in the middle of the night. But I've never like really slept in a place where I felt like anyone was gonna do that.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, like on Big Bend, we were a couple miles from the nearest person, and yeah.
A couple,
at
maybe.
least, yeah.
We have no idea. I mean, they could have been 100 miles away. We wouldn't have known. Yeah. So you've never locked up your bike either?
No, I never have. I have put it under like a little like dining fly, I guess, like a little like rain tarp. I've used on places where it's rainy, like in the mountains and stuff. When you get into rainy season, it's going to rain every afternoon. It's nice to have that, and so you can throw your bike under there at night, but. That's just to keep it dry. No security really there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it depends on where you go. I mean, I have had a bike stolen. It's not fun. So I am pretty protective of my bikes. But in those environments where I go, it's never been an issue for me. So, all right, man, we're making pretty good progress here. Tips on solo trips. Can't find anyone to go. So I'm planning some solo trip stuff for my first trip. All right. So first of all, I didn't write down who I'll ask all these questions, but if you're the person that is looking for someone to go on a ride with, if you want to shoot me a message on Instagram or email me at bikes@bikesfordeath.com, I'll put a word out through my channels and I'll see that if we can get you a riding partner. But I just wanted to say, like, for me, yeah, there's a lot of like good or appealing aspects of riding solo. All right, so I actually thought this was a kind of interesting question. I like solo bike packing, and I don't want to send somebody out there on their first solo trip with bad advice. So we only had one person ask us this question, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who maybe with COVID or whatever are probably in a similar situation. So I'm going to go through, I wrote down some thoughts on solo bike packing. So I'm going to go through those, and Connor, if you want to fill in any gaps or if you have any thoughts, then we'll make that happen. All right. So, I mean, my first thought is like solo bikepacking is to me enjoyable. I like all kinds of bike packing is sometimes fun to go with a group or just a friend or a partner. And sometimes it's fun to just go by yourself. I know you actually go on quite a few solo trips too, so that'll be fun to hear about. Some of the things that I like about solo bike packing is that you can go at your own pace. You know, you don't have to make an excuse if you're the slow one, or you don't have to be the fast one and waiting for everybody else to, you know what I'm saying? So you just go at your own pace. You know, if you see something cool, you can stop and explore it. You see a historical marker, you could Google it if you want to. You don't have to worry about, you know, other people and if they're ready to go or whatever. You can also talk to the animals and you sing to them.
Yeah. Depends how long you're out there for, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm singing to them on just a short ride. They're good. They need a little, you know, interaction. Take as many pictures as you want. Want is one of my favorite. I love to stop and take pictures. Read a book at camp in the hammock. I thought that was a good one. You know, you just get to camp. It's quiet. It's beautiful. You're tired. And you just read a book in your hammock. Maybe you wake up the next morning, you read a book, have a little coffee. You know, just nice and peaceful, right?
For sure.
Maybe halfway you get tired and you want to set up your hammock on the side of the road and just take a nap. You can do that too. So I think there's a lot of positive things. So, you know, I think a lot of times people want to go in groups, but, you know, I think there's a lot of benefits to going solo. So I wanted to throw that out there. But I also wanted to say that there's certainly some precautions that you want to take if you're going solo, right? You're the only one there. There's no one to make sure you're, you know, go get help and whatnot. So let's talk about, you know, some steps. First, prepare. Be prepared, you know, like make a plan for everything. Like you need a route, you need to have the gear, you need to make sure the gear works, like test it out at your house, all this stuff. Like, you know, like you really need to prepare. And I think your level of preparation is going to depend on your experience level, right? Like some people are really good cyclists. Some people have a lot of backpacking experience that they can dovetail nicely into it. So you really have to like take an honest inventory of who you are, what your skill sets are, and don't plan a trip like over your head. Like you're going out there. The goal should be fun, success, you know, just like let's have a good fun trip and not have anything go wrong, right?
Right.
So I would say like stay close and go somewhere familiar, you know, like if you're like new to solo bike packing and solo adventuring, like don't go crazy. Do something, you know, where you know where you are and, you know, you're not going to get lost or anything. What else? Oh, and lastly, have an exit strategy. I think that's one of the most important things. My ultimate exit strategy is I have a spot tracker that it has a few different functions on it for anyone who doesn't know, but it's a spot tracker. It's pretty common. It has 3 options in there. You can pre-program it. Well, there's several different ones. The one I have, you can pre-program it to like send a message to somebody that says, hey, I'm just stopping. Don't worry about me. Just taking a break. You can send another one that says, hey, I'm stuck. My bike is broken, whatever. I'm not injured, but I need someone to come pick me up. And you have these people like already on standby and you know that they're available and all that kind of stuff. And then the last one is an SOS button, and that's just the cavalry, man. It doesn't matter where you are. If they got to come by air, water, you know, land, whatever it is, they're coming for you. And I have it on good authority. I haven't done it personally, but I know people who have pushed that button and they're coming. Everybody's coming. So that's like the ultimate exit strategy. I think the easiest one is just if you have a friend in town that you can be like, hey, if, you know, my bike breaks something, like, could you come pick me up? And that, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, those are my thoughts on solo bike packing. Just a few quick thoughts. What do you think?
No, I think you're spot on. And I think, you know, one thing to mention too is, you know, it's pretty basic, but it's worth mentioning is just let someone know when you're going to be back. You know, so, you know, that friend in town.
Where you're going. Yeah. With Strava, with Garmin, maybe ride with GPS, you can share your location. I mean, even with an iPhone, you can share your location. So if you're somewhere with service, you know, share with a friend, and that way someone knows where you are. I think that's a good one. Thank you, Connor.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we have another one. Oh, I forgot we had 2 on this. Safety for sure. I've been wanting to go on a trip but it will likely be solo. So again, I'm not sure who wrote that. If you want a riding partner, you can reach out to me and I'll see if I can make a connection for you. I did have a safety tip that I wanted to add, and I don't know if you have any other safety tips. Hal Russell shared this with me, and one thing he does, he's a little bit older. He's in his 70s. He's a legend. He's done Tour Divide. Do you know him?
You told me about it.
He's 6 times. I love some Hal Russell. If you don't know Hal, he's got a beautiful smile, beautiful demeanor, and he's a beautiful man. And he goes and does crazy things in crazy places all by himself all over the world. And he just has one of those personalities where if someone is kind of sketchy with him or whatever, if he feels weird, he'll ask him if he can take a picture of him because he's looking for he likes to catalog and all the fun and cool people he meets along the way or something like that. Another thing, which is a really disarming thing to do, but another way that it serves him is all of his pictures are uploaded to a cloud that somebody knows about. So he's been in situations before where someone was trying to rob him and he took a picture of him. And he said that picture was just uploaded to a cloud. If anything happens to me, they're going to know exactly who the person was that did it, and that's what he said to him, I've had a similar, actually with my Spot, the same thing. It's if you have your finger on that SOS button and say, listen, I pay a lot of money for this little device right here. I do crazy things in crazy places and I pay a lot of money so that if I push this, everyone's coming. I don't know what you're thinking about doing right now. I don't want any trouble or whatever. So just go on your, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of reasoning like that is a good safety tip. So
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Taking pictures of people.
I like the picture one.
Yeah.
Yeah. The picture one's good. I mean, you can't control what everybody does. I mean, it's being prepared and being honest with yourself about who you are and what your capabilities are. Because if you get out there, there's no one else. You're solo. You gotta really know what you can do and what you can't do. Yeah. So, right?
Yeah, I think that preparedness too is important, environmentally, food and water and stuff. Knowing what you're getting into.
Well, actually, that's
probably cover that more in gear, but
I mean, your segue is so good. We are actually so close to that because we're going to be getting into more food, gear, water, and all that, and the actual preparedness of it. Common problems. This is interesting. My thought was if you prepare, I don't have common problems. I've never had a common, if I have a common problem, it means that there's a problem and I didn't solve it the first 3 times, and that's just not in my nature. I don't know. Is that, it's kind of an asshole answer.
Yeah, I think, it helps when you have some experience over time, you kind of figure that stuff out, but I don't know, starting off.
Yeah, if you're starting off, a common problem.
I mean, you have the basic bike problems, you got the flat
tires. But even then, if you have a good setup, I mean, we were talking about this on the trip, man. If you maintain your bike well or take it to your local bike shop and they do, which I do, Connor takes very good care. I told Connor before this trip, he's the mechanic on the trip. So I told him, I said, listen, I'm bringing you my bike and Sarah's bike before the trip. So you can either fix them now or fix them on the trip. It's up to you. I think that's what this whole episode is about is we're kind of addressing people's questions and the problems maybe they're facing. So actually maybe this whole kind of episode is maybe addressing that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
I feel actually hold on. What number are you? Number 13, common problems. I apologize. This whole podcast, this episode is dedicated just to your question. Okay. This one says, I always love to hear people's choice of clothing. Actually, 3 people wanted to hear about clothing. So, all right, you go first. What'd you wear on this trip? What'd you bring? What'd you need? What'd you not need? Did everything work good? The whole thing. Yeah.
Well, I guess we can start at the bottom. Socks. I never really use bike socks. I use just some hiking socks. I'm a little more comfortable in them, but having some good socks you like, and then having a spare set or 2. If you get wet, this didn't happen at Big Bend because there's not much rain out there, but having that spare set of socks you can come home to is pretty comforting.
What about wool, man?
Yeah.
You don't need a spare.
I know you'll be all right, but it's kind of maybe like a luxury item, you know. It's nice to be able to change into those dry socks at the end of the day.
Definitely not for me.
No.
I'm going to disagree with Connor
All
here
right,
on this
that's
one.
fine. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is the way I look at it. If you want it, great. You're the one who has to carry it.
Yeah,
so I
that's
don't
fair.
give a shit what anyone brings or whatever, what you want to take. If you want to carry it and deal with it all that, then that's great. But for me, one pair of wool socks, one pair of wool underwear, you know, like wool for me is the ultimate, you know, like, it doesn't stink. It dries. It'll keep you warm when it's wet. I love me some wool. Sponsor me, wool. All right, sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
No, you're fine. Yeah. What else?
Yeah, so extra socks starting at the bottom. Sorry.
Yeah, you can do that. But we kind of we were in two different camps here on the chamois question.
Yep.
And Patrick can probably answer more to his side, but I am a chamois guy. You know, it does mean that you might have to take an extra pair of shorts to wear around camp, so you're not wearing your diaper walking around. But I've never found. I haven't been riding that long, but riding a good deal of miles, I've never found a saddle that fits me perfectly. After trying tons of different styles, so having that chamois really helps, especially on a longer day.
In the last 7 years, though, you've probably ridden a lot. I mean,
fair bit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You pretty like. Anyway, so for you, I mean, and that's dude. Everybody's body's different, and so no one right way. To follow up on that, like, I tried for the first time ever going on a bikepacking trip with no chamois and only these new wool underwear that I got. I don't remember the brand, but I'm not sponsored by them anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I actually thought they were great. Honestly, it was really nice to not have to, like, at the end of the day, change, hang them up, let them dry, and all that. I felt no discomfort whatever in terms of, it got very hot, very sweaty, but it also dried out very quickly. I didn't feel gross at all. So that worked for me, but also you and I both use the exact same saddle, but we don't have the exact same sit bones.
Right.
So for me, it works amazing. I love that saddle, and which I guess we should just say is the Brooks Cambion with the carved. Yeah. Okay, more clothes. What else we got? Chamois. What else? So the temperatures were, let's say, 85 during the day and an average of 40 at night.
Yeah,
but it got a little bit colder. Yeah. So what was the full line of what you brought to wear?
For that scenario, layering is key. In most outdoor situations, it really is, especially on a bike when you're doing something, aerobic, and you're going to be sweating once you get on the bike, and you be able to take stuff off and you're starting from cold. But I just do like a synthetic, dry fit style top, and then
like a form fitting one?
No, just like a loose one, but like that same material,
Okay, yeah.
And then I did have a long sleeve one as well on this trip, which was nice to get some sun protection. I also had a flannel as well, sun protection and warmth there. And then, in the evenings I had a down jacket. So keep everything warm. And the same kind of warmth.
Do you wear any leggings?
I had some, yeah. There were some Patagonia leggings I found on the side of the trail. I washed them since then. But I just use those. And they're nice. They don't take up as much room as pants, but they give you another bottom layer you can add on. So.
Let's see, what else? You didn't, I know you brought gloves.
And
what about any warmth for your head when you're sleeping or when you're riding? Do you like anything on your head?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I normally wear a helmet when I'm riding, but just around the evening, I just have like a wool cap, stocking cap beanie thing. So.
And you brought your bucket hat.
I did, yes.
So you had your bucket hat.
Yeah.
He had it fashioned to the top tube.
Yeah.
Which it was hot out there. That sun hits you hard. So
it doesn't quit.
No, it doesn't quit. And you were warm. You felt like you were pretty good with your setup.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, our weather was pretty good for this trip. It was like I had, what I did is, we should say that one thing about the national park is these backcountry spots that we're going to, you can't reserve. The ones that we wanted to go to, you can't reserve. So luckily we got the sites we wanted and there was like nobody there. So it wasn't an issue at all. But I didn't know exactly what the route we were going to do was, and we didn't know exactly what the weather was going to be. And so I packed like a variety of things, and I was like, I'm going to pack it the night before, or the morning of, or whatnot. And I brought way more stuff than what, like in terms of, I brought to pack way more than I actually wound up packing, because the weather turned out to be like really nice. It didn't get anywhere near cold enough for me to bring like all this stuff. So to echo what you said, layering. If it's going to be really cold, I have my main like cold weather gear is from a company called First Light. They make really high-end merino wool, and it's the stuff everybody sees me wearing with the camo pattern on it. It's from my hunting days, like a long time ago, but it's really expensive, and I've had it forever, and it works like super well. So, I have everything from a thin merino wool base layer to a thicker one. Then from there, I would go to on my top, obviously, a windbreaker. Oh, sorry. If it's even cold enough, I would put an arm warmer on over that, then a windbreaker, and then I'd put my puffy on top of that. And then you always got to have some kind of thing on your head and face. So I like to have, be able to cover up everything. But so I mean, you can go pretty extreme with the layering, like you can, and that's what you got to do. And then you got to have a place to pack on your bike and all this. For this trip, it was pretty easy. I took one merino wool top. I took my puffy from Black Diamond. On the base layer, I took one merino wool leggings. I wore my just regular shorts that I wear on a daily basis, and my merino wool underwear. For socks, I agree. I like wool hiking socks. Just nothing too thick, nothing too thin. You find what you like, and those work really well for me. Unlike you, like I said, I think one, for me works fine. Maybe your feet sweat a lot. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't need too much. The only thing, I couldn't find my gloves. I was looking for, I ordered some shower pads. They came in the day after that we took off. So I'm looking forward to trying those out. But I was wearing like one glove of one kind and one of another, but it didn't turn out to matter too much.
Yeah, I think my sock thing comes from like years of hiking in the rainy season of the Rockies. Your feet are going to get soaked, in the afternoon, no matter what, once you get into July and August. So kind of one of those carryovers.
So a lot of people, like I mentioned, this was my birthday, 41, if anybody wants to know, 41 years old, young. What's my favorite cake? And
oh man, I didn't know people asked that. I could have made it.
I know, man. This was a total botch on my part, like 1,000%. Because several people ask, what my favorite cake was, and also how do you make it when you're camping. So here's the thing. Connor actually is a really nice guy and a good friend. And he was like, hey, this has nothing to do with your birthday, but what kind of cake do you like? And unfortunately for him, like I don't have a sweet tooth. I have other vices, let's say, but sweet tooth really isn't one of them. So like, I don't even know what kind of sweets I like. And so we had this awkward conversation where I never really answered it.
Yeah.
But you did look up how to make cake in the backcountry, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you I don't know. I'm not a big sweets person. We didn't eat cake. I drank my bourbon and we looked at the stars and we had a wonderful night, but no cake. So, but yeah, how do you make it though?
So I did some experimenting at home before.
You even experimented?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, now I feel even worse.
No, it's fine. So my first thought was to use, since you can't have a fire, that kind of takes out a lot of options on using coals and stuff. So my first thought was to use a stove on really low heat underneath a pot and to heat up rocks in the same stove and put them on top to kind of make a Dutch oven effect. It didn't work too well. It used a lot of fuel. So my next thing I tried was it's called wet baking.
Wait, pause. Are you getting these ideas from the internet, or are you just coming up with these on your own?
Wet baking was from the internet.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first one you tried was your own?
Yes. Yeah, the rocks. Cause I've
curious.
Dutch oven baked, so I was like, maybe it would work. And
Okay.
yeah, and then the wet baking.
So you tried it on your own. You're like, all right, internet, what do you got?
Yeah, and so I found it was a Knowles article on wet baking, and basically it's kind of like a double boiler, but you boil a pot of water and then you get another pot and put whatever you're baking inside that, and close it up, and it kind of steams and circulates heat. The issue with that is it doesn't get crispy. It like stays doughy. I don't really like that. So another one, I kind of combined the two methods. It's like wet baking, but you don't use water. You put a little piece of foil underneath your inner pot, and that keeps it off the bottom. You don't have direct heat, but you have enough circulation in there to bake.
Did you invent that one?
I'm trying to think.
Sounds like a modification.
Yeah.
It sounds like we need to do a video.
Yeah, that would probably explain it a lot well. It's kind of hard to explain, but
that'd be
we
fun.
Put something together.
Yeah.
Well, that one works. I actually got I need to tweak the recipe. It didn't taste great, but it was just to prove that you could bake something with the camp stove. So
yeah. I wish I wasn't such a prude, like not a prude. I wish I wasn't so lame.
Yeah.
And actually like cake and would have had an opportunity to watch this. I feel so bad. Like you made the whole process. It's very nice though.
I just want to see if I could do it. And
yeah.
I ended up having to carry less stuff. So yeah, it was all right.
It didn't hurt your feelings too bad. Yeah. All right. The cake. Now what? Food. Well, obviously food is a big one. Food, water, air. So, what did you eat and how much did you eat kind of deal?
We had pretty different philosophies there.
Actually, this is where Sarah's gonna hop in here in a second. Do you want to start with what you did?
Yeah.
Because Sarah and I, we did our thing, and then Connor was solo self-supported, so he was doing his own thing.
Yeah. So I guess my style kind of comes from getting tired of eating dehydrated food. So I kind of try and stick with more, normal foods that I'm a little more used to. So like you bring stuff like salami, you can do like hard cheeses and stuff, and that'll keep. Tortillas are a game changer. For lunches and stuff, it's carbs, but it fills you up. And then for dinner, you can put them down in your bowl, and put whatever you're eating in there, and you can eat it out of the tortilla, and then you can eat the last bit, roll it up, and you don't have to clean your bowl. It's a pretty good little trick.
Let's describe this a little better, just since we're on a podcast.
Yeah.
So what he does is he has his bowl, and then he puts down a tortilla in the bowl, and then he puts all of his stuff on top of the tortilla in the bowl, and he eats out of it normal, like with a spoon. And then instead of licking the bowl, he just takes that tortilla, rolls it up, and eats it like a genius.
Yeah.
It's great. Connor's got tricks and tips, man. I'm telling you, we might have to have him back on.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just like, I don't know, I think one night
you ate pretty basic food. I mean, pretty...
like Kraft mac and cheese, like summer sausage and jalapenos.
Yeah.
I tried pickled okra. I like it at home, but when it gets hot, it's not as great. That was kind of an experiment there.
Did you do anything else kind of interesting with your food? I feel like you did. Do you bring any spices or anything
some slap your mama.
Slap your mama? Yeah.
Sarah's a big fan of that.
Yeah, Sarah, we all cook with slap your mama around here.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be the name of our friendship group. Slap your mama. All right, Sarah, get over here. All right, so we have a friend. Well, I should say Sarah's friend, good friend, coworker. Him and his husband have a freeze drying machine, a freeze dryer. I don't know, but it's like a complicated piece of equipment, because I had this idea whenever I met Sarah, and I started to really learn about food and nutrition, and actually putting good stuff into your body, and like your body responding well to it, and then like it works better and stuff, like I've started to like learn about this kind of stuff. And so I mean, how great would it be if we had like bike packing food that was lightweight? All you had to do was add water to it when you got to camp, and it had all the nutrients in it and all this stuff, right? So Sarah, welcome to the Bikes for Death podcast.
Hello.
Just for context, like you have a very strict diet on a daily basis because you found like that's what works best for your body through a lot of trial and error. And we probably can save like all the details for another podcast maybe, but you've taught me a lot about the like value of good quality food. Like you've spent a lot of time like looking into it and stuff like that. And whenever you and I got into bike packing, started looking at the meal options available from Mountain House and other ones that I don't even know the names of. And you're like, they don't have like, well, you say, well, like, I don't know all the technicalities. So what was missing and what did you see could be improved on?
I just didn't feel like they were super friendly for people that do have any kind of like dietary restrictions. It's a lot of, like wheat and oats and things like that. And so, they're high in carbs, but not in really very nutritious if you kind of look at it, a dietary standpoint. You're going on a long ride and you're exercising and you're, burning a lot of calories. Like you need a lot better, nutrients other than wheat and oats and things like that. Sodium, it's not really good. So
the two processes of food is freeze dried and do you remember the other one?
What do you mean?
Dehydrated.
Yeah. So
So what's the difference there? Yeah.
From, I don't know, like super technical standpoint, but from what I read.
No one here is an expert.
Yeah.
Nobody here is an expert.
Yeah. When they freeze dry it, it keeps all its nutrients. So whenever you're rehydrating it, you're getting everything, from it. It's as if like it was just freshly made. Yeah. Versus dehydration, you do lose a lot of the nutrients in the food. And so, like I said, if you're doing a lot of exercise or anything like that, you need all the nutrients you can get. So, obviously freeze dried is not the easiest way of doing things or the most affordable. So that's why a lot of people use dehydrated food. But I tried the dehydrated food and it was inedible. The ants wouldn't even eat it. So I did not want to do that again.
Once and done.
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
Well, let's talk a little bit too about like the inflammatory reasons too, because I think it's interesting. Like Sarah eats an inflammatory diet, an anti. Oh my God, Sarah eats
yeah, I guess now I'm like wondering what it's called.
Anti-inflammatory
diet.
Yeah, I know what it was called. She's like, inflame my shit. I'm taking some of that. Take some bread. Take some enchiladas. Inflame it, baby. Give me the dairy.
Yeah, I want the sugar.
No, but for her dietary and health reasons, she eats an anti-inflammatory diet. And one thing that I thought she has this theory that, well, it's not a theory, that inflammation causes pain. That part isn't a theory, but because you're a new cyclist, right?
Yeah.
And like you just did like a 69-mile ride to my house and you're like, oh, I'm not tired. I'm not in pain, blah, blah, blah. And we're trying to figure out like why you don't hurt like a normal person, why you're not in pain and experiencing discomfort like normal people do when they ride 70 miles, and you had the theory that maybe it's that you eat a pretty clean anti-inflammatory diet. And so your idea was to like, can we incorporate this clean, nutrient-rich food into something that we can take in the backcountry, right? And this trip was like our first chance to try it. Like we've had this idea, we've talked about it. In theory, this was our first chance to try it. So what did you cook for us?
Well, I did it like a stew. My potatoes actually are against the anti-inflammatory diet, but I break that rule because it doesn't bother me and they're delicious.
Which goes back to knowing your own body, right?
Yeah. They, just like anything, you have to kind of try certain foods and see how you respond, to kind of cut everything and then slowly introduce things back so you can kind of figure out like what, is fine or not okay. But yeah, so I did a stew just with some steak and potatoes, and I wanted to do some broccoli with a little chicken broth, something that was kind of hearty since I knew that we would be riding like long distance. And surprisingly, it was kind of weird looking at it freeze dried, but it actually worked out really well. I did do eggs, cause I love eggs. And, so I did eggs and bacon with a little bit of beans. The eggs they were not a hit. they took a really long time to rehydrate. So we kept eating them kind of like not crunchy, but chewy. It was not the best.
Okay. Well, we're still learning, and we did like this. We knew we were going to learn as we went. The first day, we didn't let the eggs soak enough or probably get hot enough, and they weren't great. The second time, we figured out, okay, give them a good 10-minute soak, extra water in there. Let's really rehydrate these puppies, and then what you want to do is wrap it up in a tortilla.
Yeah, you need to hide it in the tortilla for it to be good.
You gotta hide it in the tortilla.
Yeah, it's not good by itself. It's torture.
But it was actually pretty cool. Like the stew that she made was really good. Tell them how the process works, because I unfortunately I couldn't be there, but it's her friends that have this machine. So like, take us through the process of how it works.
Like I said, I don't know like super technical the process, but from what I can remember, you cook it like you normally would. You know, they have like these little trays. There's 4 trays in the machine. So you like cook it like you need, season it. You know, if you make it too bland, it's going to be super, super bland, you know, still once it's freeze dried. So you want to, you know, make sure you have like good seasonings, all those things. Slap your mama for sure. Don't slap your mom, the seasoning. But with that being said, it goes into
I guess
this.
not everybody listening is from Texas, so they might not get that reference. The
seasoning.
Slap your mama is a seasoning.
Yeah,
here.
slapping moms is not acceptable anywhere.
Not okay anywhere. No. We all love our moms
it's
very much.
Not bikepacking approved or life approved, but
or Bikes or Death approved.
Yes, we love our moms here. But with that being said, you put it into this little chamber. It I think it pressurizes the chamber, like takes all the air out. I'm not 100% sure on that. I need my friend here to.
That's okay.
Really
you put it into a fancy, expensive machine.
Big fancy machine.
And in 48 hours later, your food that went in fresh, full of nutrients, turns into what?
It's like it looks like space food, because it does. It's literally taking like all the moisture, so it freezes it, and then it actually ends up reheating it and turns all of that like cold, or the water into a gas. And so it holds it in that chamber and drains out of the machine essentially. And so, it looks like space food. It's like a super lightweight little bar looking thing that you break up into pieces or whatever, you know. Food, if you do like avocados, it's the exact shape of an avocado. If you do a strawberry, like it doesn't shrink and shrivel up. Like it's fairly similar to the same exact size, just super light in weight.
Yeah, so from a bikepacking perspective, the lightweight was really great. And some of the stuff you don't have to rehydrate. Bananas. We had prunes. Prunes were really good. Oh, no. Strawberries.
It was plums.
Plum. Yeah, it was a plum.
Grandmas eat plums or prunes.
Whatever. Plumes. You correct me with a plume? Is that what you got?
I'm making my own fruit.
You correct me with a non-existent fruit?
It could be real. It's probably made somewhere. I just don't know where.
With a Lorax somewhere. Oh my gosh. I don't even remember what we're talking about now. Connor, where were we? Plums, yeah. Oh, the strawberries. Yeah. And the avocados were interesting. The avocados tasted like pistachio nuts almost. Yeah.
A little creamy. When you creamy. Are eating them, they get kind of creamy. I like them. Not for everyone.
So, in my opinion, actually, I'd like to hear your. So this was our first shot. You and I, we've talked about it for a while. It's it's very important to you to eat a good, clean diet, anti-inflammatory, and all this stuff, especially when you're doing stuff like bikepacking. Was it a success? How are you happy with your results, and what do you want to do next time or fix next time?
Yeah, I was super happy with it. I like food a lot, so I want like real food, whole food, like real ingredients. It's cool, like have protein bars and stuff like when you're out because it's convenient and stuff, but nothing's better than like really hearty, good food, just to like give your body that fuel back that you've lost. So I thought it turned out just fine, because I had bronchitis. I didn't really get to ride. So I didn't get to like truly, truly test it out, but I still get hungry regardless of what I'm doing.
I was going to say, you still got to eat.
I'm still just as hungry. So I thought it turned out well. I want to figure out the eggs thing, think of different options. I'm a big smoothie drinker. So I did make some like smoothie bars. I want to like kind of do more with that. But yeah, they took a long time, so I didn't really get to, bring a lot of those. But that's something I want to like look into more. Just find different meals that turn out well. Really the only thing is trying it. I don't really know. It's totally new to me. I had never
it's like the dinner you made tonight. She made it. I don't even know what it was, but it was freaking amazing. And I'm like, put that in the dehydrator and let's take that bike packing because that's good.
Yeah, what we realize is like meat, surprisingly, like it works really well. Like meat, or I'm like, we could do a steak, like stuff like that. It kind of makes like the possibilities endless because the stew.
Right, you can think about taking like I could take we talked about doing my brisket.
Yeah, brisket.
I do my 24-hour brisket overnight, and you can, what is it called? Freeze dry it?
Yeah,
freeze dry it. And then you rehydrate it. And that's the other thing we didn't talk about is the amount of water. That's what I wanted you to talk about. So let's talk about real quickly. So you dehydrate, you take all the water out. Then what? You get back to camp. What do you do?
Yeah. So you have to, you weigh the food before. And then
before you throw it in the magical machine, you weigh the food.
Yeah. You weigh it. That way, like how much water that you're having to put back. So, after you dehydrate it, you weigh it again. And then, the difference is what you end up needing in water. The cool thing also about freeze dry is you actually require less water than dehydrated food. So that's also a plus if you're, limited in how much water you can bring.
Yep.
It's really not that crazy. I mean, if you can do subtraction, you can, you got it.
Man, we had a calculator. I'll tell you what, we were all over that. And honestly, like there was a little bit of like, well, honestly, my measuring device was kind of failing on my part. So let's call that my error and not necessarily.
Eyeballing 8 ounces is kind of hard. But some of the bottles have like measuring lines on there. I would recommend that because we a couple times like didn't have enough. We kept adding more.
Yeah. Well, and I mentioned earlier that Nalgene's have the measuring gauges on there, and we had Nalgene's the whole time, but I never thought to use one. So just because you're got the right equipment doesn't mean you're smart enough to use it. All right. Yeah. I mean, I think it was so cool. The egg, the breakfast in the morning needs a little bit of work, but I am not giving up on that breakfast. It's not bad. It's not good yet though, but we're gonna get it dialed in.
Mediocre.
And I'm like excited about trying more of the freeze dried foods. Like that was our first foray into it. The stew that she made, I'm telling you, I've ate every rehydrated, dehydrated thing out there, like I've ate the nasty pizzas that you don't have to heat up, the macaroni. I've had it all.
Yeah. And
that stew was by far, because it tastes like real food. That's the thing, is like it was real food. You got all the nutrients and it's satisfying. It's like, not only does it like taste good and it's what your body needs, but it's also like kind of a pick-me-up. You're like out in a remote place and it's nice to have like some creature comforts and some really good food after you worked really hard, and also, get that fuel back in the body and the calories back in your body for the next day.
Yeah, it makes a big difference, being able to control like what you eat. It's makes a world of a difference to me, honestly, especially if you have any kind of ailments. I have arthritis and things like that. So if I eat bread and sugar and all the things that I see a lot of people eat, I'll be hurting. I'll not be going very far. You'll be dragging me on the ground. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your time at the Bikes for Death podcast has come to an end.
Thank
We'd
God.
like to have you awkwardly exit stage left, if you don't mind. And I will seamlessly segue back to Connor like so. Food, water. Okay, we are down to the last two. Let's power hour. So we did food, good times. We all ate well, and now we need to talk about water. So we're going to the desert, Big Bend, and I can tell you, especially in Texas, Big Bend is a major destination for bike packing, and I think it's growing at a somewhat rapid pace. The biggest issue for people out there and in any desert situation is going to be access to water. Luckily, the Big Bend National Park and the Big Bend State Park are on the Rio Grande River. And when we created this trip, we actually I believe we kind of picked that area because of the access to water. It's either carry all your water for 3 or 4 days, or it's, dip your toe into the Rio and filter it a little bit and cross your fingers. So I haven't had any gastrointestinal issues. Have you?
No, we're good.
Sarah, how are you feeling over there? Thumbs up from Sarah. So we all drank from the Rio. We're all feeling good. But let's talk about what our water strategy was for this particular trip. This was a 3-day trip. We started on the morning of Friday, and we rode through Sunday, and we were going to do about 90 miles-ish, something like that. We had access to the Rio Grande. Now, depending on who you ask, it is not the most sanitary river to drink out of, and the park rangers will maybe laugh at you and advise you not to drink out of it. But Connor and I had a chat about our own personal threshold of risk tolerance towards the Rio Grande. We felt like filter it, boil it, or use a tablet in there, a purification tablet, and we'd be okay. So that was kind of our plan going into it. I personally carried 4 liters of water. I have a clean canteen that I mount to my down tube that carries 2 liters of water, which is great. It's a great place to carry a lot of water. In my main triangle, I carry 1 liter, and then I carried another liter on my handlebar in like a feed bag. So I carried a total of 4 liters of water, fresh water going in. Our first day was, I think, about 35 miles. Yeah. So, 4 liters to get you to the 35 miles, and then we would have access to the Rio Grande there at the end of that first night. But the temperatures honestly weren't too hot, so I didn't even think I would need 4 liters on the first day. I thought that was pretty generous for the first day for me. Yeah. So let's see. That was our water strategy on this one, and it worked pretty well. Yeah. What did you carry?
I had about 3.5.
3.5.
Yeah, and I filled it up too at the beginning. I don't think I drank through all of it the first day, but
yeah,
it's one of those things. It's the desert. When you can fill up water, you fill up water. So,
right. Yeah. That's one of those like golden rules we mentioned in the desert. It's like golden rule: if you have access to water, fill up every chance you get. And we stuck to that pretty well. Yeah. On that first night we got there, we went down the Rio and we filtered. And then we got our second campsite was further down on the Rio. So first we stayed at Tally 2, and then the second night we stayed at Solis 2, which is again right on the Rio. And there's both of them has easy access to water. For anyone looking to go out there and do that. The easy access to water, drink at your own risk. I wouldn't probably drink a ton of it. I wouldn't want to sustain my life over drinking that water maybe, but everything in moderation, right?
Yeah. I think the treating was key too.
Yeah. Well, we were smart about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. This is all like, do it. Yeah. I said, filter it and or boil and treat, don't just go drinking all willy-nilly.
Right.
Well, did you have anything else about water?
No, I don't think so. I mean, and out there too.
Let's talk about your. I wanted to talk about your filter real quick because I thought your filter was kind of cool. There's a lot of different filters. I brought with me the Sawyer Mini, which is a very common one. It's a nice lightweight one that I've used many times and it works. Connor has one though that's a little bit more robust and faster. So we didn't even use mine. We just went straight to yours.
Yeah, I use the Katadyn gravity filter. It's a little bigger, so a little better for a group. But yeah, I filtered that. And really the water, it's probably okay just filtering through that. But just to be safe, we did see, horses and mules crossing the river. And so, with that activity, we went ahead and treated too with chemical, some micropure in it too, just to be safe. I mean, it's not worth it,
No. No. Yeah, and we're off the trip a couple days after drinking the water, a few days. No one's had any issues.
Yeah,
I would say
sure.
the water, if you've never filtered and treated water in that way, I would say it tastes okay.
Yeah.
It's not going to taste bad, and it's probably not going to taste great. But it's fine to drink. You're not gonna you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'm actually kind of a water snob a little bit. I like good water. I don't know. I don't want nasty water. and it was fine. So, but I can tell you what, whenever we got back to Rio Grande Village, the station there, I was eager to get my hands on some Ozarka or something. I don't know. I don't remember what they had. All right, so last question, route building. That was the number one topic. Everybody wanted to know about route building, how all the things. So I wrote, since we got so many questions about it, I went ahead and wrote down a bunch of notes on it. So let me go through what I got, and you can fill in and tell me where I messed up. First of all, I love route building. For me at night, poring over maps and looking at all the different possibilities is maybe not half the fun, but it's part of the fun of bikepacking for me, is thinking about all the places I could go and the ways I could get there and could I do it and all this stuff, right? So maybe do that. Just get on I use Ride with GPS. What do you use? What's your favorite route planning app?
Yeah, it depends where I'm at. Some apps are better than others. But yeah, I've used Ride with GPS. It's pretty good. I've used just straight Google Maps.
Yeah.
Especially if you have, some road mixed in.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for that. Strava too, every once in a while, but everyone's got pretty good stuff nowadays. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I use Strava sometimes. There's Gaia. Gaia has some different stuff. I use them, but my first go-to is always Ride with GPS. That's where I start, and then it can go from there. One advantage to Ride with GPS and Strava over Google Maps is the heat maps, which if anyone doesn't know, I'd be surprised. But heat maps basically show every time anyone on Strava or Ride with GPS records a ride, God, how do you describe that? It shows up on the map. So whenever you're looking at a map, you'll see all the lines where people ride. They'll show up, they'll glow on the map. You'll be able to see where the most popular routes are. So for this route, for example, we both wanted to go to Big Bend. It was my birthday. We were going wherever I wanted, but of course, I let you pretend like you had a say. Actually, the truth is you were actually wanting to go to Big Bend. You had another Big Bend trip kind of planned.
Yeah, it fell through.
I had another podcasting trip planned. Both of our trips fell through. And so then we just kind of did the Big Bend thing. But you and I have both been out to Big Bend many a times. We've seen a lot of it, but it's over 1 million acres. There's a lot to see. And we both kind of wanted to see something new. And like we said, we kind of looked at this portion of the River Road in the Big Bend National Park as a starting point for its access to water. And also Connor and I had never seen it before. So just an opportunity to see something new. So that was kind of the motivation between this route and what I was thinking about when we went in to build it. So, the other thing that I was thinking is that for a while now, I've been wanting to create a route in Big Bend that's a little bit more accessible. There's a couple out there right now that are both great routes, but they're both very challenging. And Big Bend it takes a long way to get there. And you might not have 5 days to do, a 200-mile route or whatever, so just something a little bit more accessible. You still get the desert experience. You still get to see the Chizos Mountains and everything, but a little bit more doable. So that was another motivation for me. Plus, I don't know if you know, but in 2020, there was a coronavirus and I've got an extra 10 pounds that I'm trying to work off. And I've got Mr. Charlie I'm trying to evict out of my stomach right now. And, so just looking for, something more manageable, in a very rugged environment.
Yeah. Cause you can hammer at home and, kill yourself riding some miles, but if you're going to drive out to Big Bend, it's nice to smell the roses a little bit,
I agree.
sit by the river and listen to the birds.
Hey man, you know what? That's something that you and I share in common and is important. And everybody can approach their, way to the outdoors in different ways. Some people want to go out there and maybe see how fast they can do it, but you and I are much more of a, hey, let's, have a relaxed time. We want to see the sights. We want to soak it in and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. Which actually leads into my next point, which is I like to plan my trips around pretty scenery, cool places, good food, and the like. So, I usually start with that. It's like, okay, we've identified where we're going to go, the kind of idea, we want to be close to water because there's not very much. And so now it becomes what campsites are available, what, we went to go see the Mariscal Mine. I found a hike, the Mariscal Canyon Rim hike. And so we threw that in there, that's part of the fun of like getting on with the heat map is you basically just look and you say, oh, what's that? Where'd those people go? And you can find all this cool stuff. And it's a good starting point. I don't think that should be it. I think, if you want to, you can like get on the park's website. Actually, we have it in front of us right now. I bought this cool book when I was at the ranger station, Road Guide to the Backcountry Roads of Big Bend National Park. And it gives you longitude, latitude, it gives you maps, all kinds of cool stuff. And so if you're the type that wants to learn about the environment that you're riding through, you can dig deeper and you can really like nerd out and put any kind of, stops along the way. Which I guess another kind of tip with ride with GPS is, whenever you're creating a route, you can drop a point of interest. So if there's something you want to see, if you're riding along, it'll pop up in your GPS, be like, hey, don't forget you want to go look at that cemetery or that mine or whatever it is. Yeah. I think like really, I don't know if there's a one way to create a route. For me, it's always been a Rubik's Cube of what kind of shape am I in? What kind of adventure am I looking for? What are there things to see and do along the route? Elevation, access to water. What campsites? What campsite do I want to stay at? I like to pick a nice campsite. You want to get to a nice spot. What do I want to do or see along the way? So like for me, a lot of times a route building is a whiskey in hand and at night just sitting there on the computer and just diving in and having fun. Like I said, I really like all this stuff. For this trip in particular, water was a huge factor. So, I already mentioned, I think we've mentioned that like 3 times.
Water everywhere.
Water. It was a big question. If you're going out to Big Bend, it is a huge issue. It shouldn't be downplayed. So it's okay that we're talking about it a lot. So, really, like, I basically took all those things. Like, for me, I was like, I guess I had a lot of goals for this trip. I was going to have a good time for my birthday weekend in a beautiful place. I wanted to see a new part of it, experience a new part of it. I also wanted to create a route, hopefully, that we could share with people and they could go out there and maybe use it as inspiration or use the exact same route, whatever it may be. And to do that, I just took all of the information that was available, and it's a puzzle. You just play with it and you play with it until you get something that looks kind of cool. I sent one version to you and then I sent another one to you and we talked about them, and this one we picked because the first day was pretty challenging. Well, I'll tell you what we landed on. How about that?
Yeah, that works.
We landed on the first day was about, I think, 35 miles, and we would camp at Tally 2, which is pretty close to the banks of the Rio Grande. And we would wake up the next day on day 2, and we were pretty close to the trailhead of the Mariscal Canyon Rim Trail, which is a 3.3 mile hike up to this canyon that we did. It was the first time I've actually ever combined bikepacking and hiking. Honestly, that was a really neat thing to do. That was the first time I've done it. We also visited the Mariscal mines there, which is only like a mile hike. But these are mines that were there since the 1900s, where they were mining.
It was mercury. Yeah, out of Quicksilver. Yeah.
Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were mining Quicksilver for mercury.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's crazy. And I'll tell you what, man, what an experience, you know, to like go and visit this like relic of the past of these people who came and developed and mined and worked and lived in this region that we're recreating through barely. You know, we go there for 4 days and we're like, damn, this is like hard. And people worked out there, you know, and we got to like experience that, you know, like, so those were kinds of the things that I was like looking for to like incorporate those into the route. So the second day we did this hike, it was probably harder than we realized.
Hotter
was the key to a lot of it. You're in the desert. And then the next day we go to Solis too. Solis?
Yeah.
Or is it Solis?
Solis. Yeah.
We camped at Solis too on the Rio Grande. And then we had a nice journey back to Rio Grande Village. Yeah.
Right to the start.
Right to the start. I'll tell you what, man, one of the best things about that trip was that last downhill through this tunnel. There's a paved downhill through a tunnel through a mountain. And it's a great way to finish off that ride. Yeah. But it turned out, you know, it was I think the way we originally drew it out was probably a little more challenging than I even realized, honestly. And that would be a tip that I would tell people is like, again, I felt like I was very much within my means whenever I created that route. And I feel like it was more. I don't feel like, I know for a fact. What am I talking about? It was more than I could handle, than I was ready for, you know, like I could throw out some excuses, but it doesn't really matter. The bottom line is, it was a good thing that it was a route finding mission and we had a car there and I didn't get myself in a situation where I had to hit a button. I don't know. I think I would have made it out. I just would have had to like alter the route, you know, like make it shorter and stuff. But, again, route building is fun for me. So this whole trip was, you know, a birthday weekend, but I tied it into a little bit of work too to create a cool route. I love building routes and being able to go out there, experience Big Bend, and look at it through the prism of like other people coming after us and like making sure that they have a good time, you know? Quite enjoyable.
I would agree.
I don't know. I talked a lot, but what do you think? Did you have any thoughts or any corrections?
No, I think one thing that did trip us up was the ride's GPS, the road that didn't exist.
I meant to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, because originally we had planned to go up Glen Spring Road and go down Black Gap. And what was that? Was that about a 30-mile day?
Originally?
All in, yeah. Or it might have been shorter was what the rider's GPS told us.
No, it was 35.
35.
It was always 35.
Oh, okay.
And then remember it was like going to be a 45.
Right. Yeah. Then we get there and the road, you know, where the road's supposed to be according to ride GPS, there's no road.
Yeah.
And so we don't know what they're actually talking about.
Yeah.
But,
so this is a perfect example of, I meant to mention this. I'm glad you brought it up because I went in, I used heat maps. I used like sometimes on Ride with GPS, and I'm using them as an example because that's who I use, but I'm sure it's the same for all of them. There's like ghost roads. It's like roads that used to be there, and I run into it everywhere, whether it's, you know, Texas and you find yourself trespassing on private land because this road isn't really a county road or whatever. So I think that's a good thing to point out is like, if you're going bike packing, and this might dovetail back into the solo stuff, like, you can't 100% rely on those maps. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's your point. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, for sure. And also, you know, another thing that kind of ties into that is give yourself kind of an out on your route if you can, you know. You know, if it's just a bad day, you know, give yourself, you can cut a little bit off or something like that. You know, it's always better, you know, to, you know, be able to tone it down a little bit than be stuck doing big distance when you're not able to.
I like that a lot, honestly. And it's another thing I think about a lot whenever I'm building a route is there a shortcut? You know, like this is my goal, but if something goes wrong, I mean, I have a listener who broke a dog ran out and wrecked him on a downhill and he broke 3 ribs and all this stuff. And guess what? he wasn't able to ride as far as he thought he was going to, He still rode, by the way. Pretty awesome, right? Yeah. Up in Arkansas with the hills and everything.
Oh man.
But I think that's like phenomenal advice. If you can, Big Bend is vast and remote and there's not a ton of options, but a lot of times, like in Texas, if you're looking, there's usually like a shortcut or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you kind of get to that point of no return, like really think about it too.
Right.
Before when you're at the fork,
when you're at the fork in the road,
think about the whole rest of the route before you make that decision. So
we had an interesting. We had a fork in the road situation at the very beginning of our ride because we all three went into. We're going to ride this route, we're going to ground truth it on our bikes and, do it the whole way. And we started the ride and, a few miles into it, Sarah's like bronchitis started being bronchitis. And we had to, it was like a difficult moment. Like, you get all the gear, you pack all the stuff up, you drive 10 hours there, you're hyped up, you're excited. And, something without your control, like I talked to her, and I think it's a good lesson. And I think it went the way it needed to go, and so I think it's worth sharing. It wasn't something I was excited to do, but, she's stubborn and strong-willed and she, like anybody, she would want to go and ride her bike and do the thing. Right. But as an outsider, I was like, okay, I've been here before. We're going into pretty difficult situation with not any help, any resources. There's not going to be anyone around. There's no cell phone service. We can't call anybody. My recommendation was for her. And my thing is like, you're an adult. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. You're an adult. You know how you're feeling. You know what your body's going through. But I'm just going to say, that I think that this trip, maybe you should, I'm like tiptoeing around. I just said that I think that this trip, let's take it easy. Your body needs to rest. Get in your truck, meet us out at the camp. Connor and I will go ride. We'll still hang out. It'll be great. And actually it worked out great. Yeah. She still would have loved to ride, of course, but she came and took pictures. We got a bunch of cool pictures. Yeah. We all got to hang out. We still did the hikes together and did lots of stuff together. So, but I think it's important again, to just be honest with yourself about what you're going through. And yeah, I understand it's like hard because like you want to go and do it so bad, but life is what it is. You got to be smart when you come to those forks in the road. Really take an honest assessment. I think that's a good advice. Like, do we have any other moments like that where we had to make any?
I don't think so, really.
Yeah. We're pretty much experts.
Wish.
Yeah. What else on routes? What did I miss? What did you think about the route that we put together?
I thought it was good. One thing I really like about it is that each day it kind of gives you something to look forward to.
Yeah.
It's like first day you get the Marsicle Mine. Second day you've got the hike.
Yeah.
And third day you're going back. So I guess you can kind of look forward to going back.
Yeah.
That's a mixed bag there. But, I think, it's mentally it helps to have something like that, to ride towards. And I don't know, one thing that I really like to do is like, incorporate the history of it and, learning about the place. Like, I should have bought that book before we went so I could read it along the way. But, learning about the place you're in, Patrick kind of mentioned the people before us. You can learn about those people and then people that after you, it's kind of a full circle sort of deal. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I love learning about the places that you're in, learning about the people that came before. Sarah bought a book about, what is it? It's actually still on the counter. It's Buzzards on the Trail, Burrows at the Door, which is a great story of the first photographer and his wife and family that were at the Big Bend at the very beginning, taking pictures of all of it. So, I mean, that's one fun thing about having Connor around. Whenever said he was a true outdoorsman, like you really understand and like have a knowledge of most of the flora and the fauna that you're encountering. I mean, as we went along, you knew most of the mountain ranges. You knew, you're very knowledgeable.
Try to at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's nice. I think it's good to have a a respect of the place that you're in. There's something about bike packing where you're like living in it, and you're really disconnected. We didn't have access to our cell phone service the whole time, right? So you're really living in that environment in a raw and a rural way that people, we had our gas stoves and stuff, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, we're the sun goes down and there's no city lights that come on, distract you. You experience the world in the way that ancient people experience the world. The sun comes up and you watch it as it does everything, as it hits this mountain, that mountain. You think about what they thought about as they saw this and how they reacted to that. And kind of get to like experience like, oh, that sun hits you and it warms you up from a very cold night,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a couple hours is hitting you and you're getting a sunburn. So,
yeah. The same thing. Yeah. I mean, you're just like out there in it. Yeah. I love it. So in closing, do you have a favorite? What was your favorite part about this trip if you had one? Anything stand out to you?
Oh man, I have to think on that one.
I'm trying to think. I don't have an answer yet either. I think it was great company. I'll say that. We're both pretty knowledgeable to where we can, we have enough experience where we can kind of go and like roll with the flow a little bit, and all of our like, I don't know, it was just like a good, like laid back, relaxing trip. You know what I'm saying? Like that's definitely what I wanted for my birthday. I just wanted to like, you really need those moments in life where you can disconnect. And I was actually, might as well, maybe we could talk about this. Did you get, I wanted to call the route Black Gap Revival, as in, revives you. Yeah. What about, the other name is Rio Grande Revival.
Yeah.
Or the Rio Revival. I like that. The Rio Revival.
R&R, yeah.
That's pretty good, isn't it? At first, I was really on the Black Gap Revival. But as I thought, like, I wouldn't have thought about this if you didn't mention it. Even though Black Gap is on the route and I was right, which is perfect. I like being right. As you and I have both talked about many times, we have a lot of respect for water. Water is a powerful force, both in shaping the world and also sustaining life. So I think the route should be called the Rio Grande Revival or the Rio Revival, something like that. Yeah. I think we got to give homage to Rio.
Especially with the Mars Skull hike.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty huge example of what water can do.
Right. Yeah. And so one other thing, Connor, what I'd like to do is I'd like to do like a route guide, like a podcast, like an audio. If you were going to go and, we're going to publish this route and people are going to go ride it. And on the way, their 10-hour drive, maybe they want to listen to a podcast about like what they could expect. So would you come back and we can talk about the route? We got a name for it now, what it's going to be and what people can maybe expect.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And we could, throw in some of the stuff, we learned after the fact too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Good deal. All right, everybody. Well, Connor, man, I appreciate you coming to my dining room.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
To talk about bikes and bike packing and stuff. It really was a great trip. I appreciate you coming to my Big Bend birthday bash bonanza, all the bees. It was a lot of fun. And I'm really excited to share the route with people, honestly. Like, I think people are going to really like it. What do you think?
I think so too. I'm ready to go back.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, what do you think? Like, you've been out to Big Bend a lot. You and I have both, like, what do you think about this route?
It's good at, exactly what its name is, a revival. It's not a crazy distance, but you get to see lots of amazing things and take your time. You can kind of get, a little more surface level with Big Bend. And for me, this is the first time to spend a lot of time in the backcountry campsites. I think this is like a really accessible way to do that. And I think that was one of my favorite parts, is just sitting there in the silence.
Oh, God,
you have the stars around you. You might get a coyote every once in a while, an owl.
Yeah, you heard an owl.
Yeah, but just like being able to get out there and just be in the silence. I think it's pretty neat.
I always forget about the silence, man. And it's a beautiful thing. It's really emotional thing. You saw at Tally 2, I walked away to enjoy the sunset. And I mean, it's just, I don't know. There's not words for it,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's going to experience in their own way, but the only thing that I know is that it's the value in that experience is worth the struggle and all the things that you have to do to get there. And I can promise you that if you like work to get there, you're going to appreciate it like a lot more. You appreciate the things that you work for. So it's a good route. I'm excited to share it. People are going to work for it, but they're also going to see, yeah, it's a revival route. And yeah, we're kind of calling it a little bit laid back, but the truth is like, it's actually really hard, even though it's kind of easy. Sure. It's like an easy, hard route. I don't know.
Sneaky hard.
We'll get into more detail about the route later then, but we'll tee that up for later. But for now, that was a long ass episode, 2 hours. I haven't done a 2-hour episode in a while. Man, you're talky.
Yeah. Well, it helps when there's questions too.
Well, I always have questions.
Oh, do you? Oh, well. There you go.
Well, okay. I will say, since I'm on record, I don't always have questions. I've experimented with questions without questions. I have landed on a rough outline and some general questions. Yeah. I think it works better.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Bye.
Good night.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Like I said at the beginning, drop me a line and let me know how you found it. Was it good? Was it good information? Was it entertaining? Was it terrible? If it's terrible, what you're going to want to do is just let me know directly. Don't leave a review or anything. But if it's good, leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Seriously, if you can't donate, if you can't buy a shirt or anything like that, if you could go over to iTunes and leave a review, gosh darn, that would just be swell. Thank you so much. I want to make sure I give a shout out to my friend Connor. Connor and I have been friends for a little while now. He's just been a great adventuring buddy, and appreciate him always being willing to go on an adventure when he can. So we had a lot of fun on this trip, and I really appreciate him coming on and talking on the podcast, and he's going to do it again. So it's good because I don't want to monologue this whole thing. I think it would be super boring. So it's really nice to have someone else here local that I can chat to, and we can kind of kick ideas back and forth, and that gets the wheels spinning. All right. Well, listen, I don't have too much else for you. I've already told you what's coming up in the next episode. I just want to let you know that if you've been paying attention to the news, or if you're just alive in the United States right now, you're probably aware of the fact that Texas is experiencing snowvid-19. And just want to let y'all know that me and my house, we're doing pretty well overall. We've had in and out power, which is what has delayed this episode from coming out. I think my daughter had COVID, tried to get her tested many times, and wasn't able to get an appointment because they kept getting closed due to the weather. So life's kind of funny right now, just kind of quarantined. But now I do have power, and I'm able to record a podcast. So I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody out there who's being affected by the weather. Hang in there, hunker down. I tried to make it a little bit of an adventure. I like it a little bit when things get different and interesting. And I had to go I'm wearing the clothes that I took on the bikepacking trip to Big Bend, actually. If you look behind me, well, I'm doing a little video. So if you're on the podcast, you can't look, but I got my bike behind me. I was unpacking it and doing a video. And anyway, I'm wearing my wool clothes that I wore out to Big Bend. Still haven't washed them. Got camp stove out, got my propane heater. You got bike packing food, all this stuff. So it's been kind of interesting to take this and utilize some of the skill sets that I've developed in bike packing and just being in the outdoors. I hope that you are too taking advantage of it and able to use some of your skill sets that you've developed. And I hope you're doing well. I know some people have it much worse than I do. So just sending shout outs, love to everybody. It looks like warm weather is coming soon. So hopefully we can put this behind us. But one thing that I noticed and I really did like is that for the last 3 to 4 days, power's been in and out. We've really had to hunker down and I was taking care of my daughter who was sick, and it's just us. And it was nice to just be very focused on taking care of your loved ones. And I don't know about you, but I'm sure you just spent the day, messaging your friends and family and saying, hey, how are you? Do you got power? Do you need anything? Is there anything I can do? And having that in return. It was nice. You don't get to see that very often. And so I know people are having a hard time, but it was nice to see how for 72 hours, all of our attention was turned to the people that we care about, the less fortunate, and our friends and family. So I really do hope that y'all are doing well and making the most of this kind of crazy situation. I know it's a joke. If you're listening from somewhere up north or somewhere that's used to the cold, you can see how not being prepared can really catch you by surprise and cause a lot of problems. Hope everyone is doing well out there. I think things are going to hopefully get back to normal here at Bikes for Death headquarters. So I've got great podcasts coming out as soon as I have power. Until then, stay safe, stay warm, and go ride your damn bike.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes